Hello, my name is Eric, and today we're going to work with step functions coordinating AWS Lambda functions. This is basically a toy project to be able to get used to some of the functionality regarding step functions. Step functions are basically a way to orchestrate a workflow with various AWS Lambda functions. So for today, the tutorial that we're going to be doing is a small example involving an if and else type of workflow where if a certain condition is satisfied, you invoke one lambda, and if not, you invoke another lambda. But yeah, that's the magic of step functions. It's just being able to chain different things. In fact, let me show you what the states browser has. You have things from the compute section, image building, light sail. You have things from S3, things from already like relational databases and non-relational databases and other types of AWS services. So yeah, let's just jump into it. So first thing to sort of clarify where we're at is that basically the way this workflow, let me detail the workflow pretty quickly. I'm sending an input, which is just a JSON payload through a pass state, which does nothing. And then it checks if the key input string is inside that JSON payload. If it is, it runs my letter counter script. The payload is processed by my letter counter script, which is a project I had already done a couple months prior in Rust. And if not, then I simply run a different Python script that the only thing it does is just tell the user that they chose the wrong, they did not include the right key. Now, first let me show you what's roughly like what's inside them. This is a little bit of a recap. So here in my letter counter script, a payload goes in, has to have input string, and if it is, you just get the letter counts for it in such a way that the output that you would roughly get would look like this. The person said hello world, and this was the letter count for the letters inside that string. So that's that for the letter counting script. The Python script is nothing too crazy. Simply says, just make sure that the assert string is not in the event that you're giving me. And here's the message. You did not use the key input string for your JSON input. It is needed for the letter counter. And then that message is dumped. Yeah, so for the rest of this tutorial, let's simply go into building out this workflow. So this is the completed workflow, but I can show you how to build it quickly. So first I'm gonna open step functions. I'm going to say get started. One thing I do want to highlight is that your Lambda functions all need to be in the same region. I am actually going to make a note of that so that I add it to the README. Be right back. All right. So make sure they're in the same region. And there was one more thing that I wanted to highlight. Yeah, sometimes you may need the AWS Lambda full access to make sure that, your invocations for the Lambda functions don't necessarily run into any issues. But yeah, let's continue with the tutorial. We should be done pretty quickly. So the first thing I said was a pass state, which you just have to, as a placeholder, just to have stuff go in and out. The next thing I said was we're going to do a simple if choice tutorial where you say like if it's there, if a condition is satisfied, opt for one thing, if not, opt for the other. So here it is, the final step, invoking lambda. So here I'm saying if a condition is satisfied, invoke a lambda. If not, invoke another lambda. There are plenty of ways you can handle this. I mean, I've seen some that do this as well. Let me see if I can find it. Some that just stops and like say like, oh, it's over, success. Or, oh, it's a failure. Let me see if I can find fail. Yeah, or fail, something like that. You can also do that. Let me just get rid of this now. And yeah, I gave them names, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm only going to modify this one. So this would be like the letter counter. And this one would be the report error. And this one would be the input string checker. And that's it. So here, the magic happens here, like input string checker. So the way you set up the condition, the way this functions is like rule number one, it means if this is true, the rest something happens. If not, go to the default condition. So it's an if else statement. If this is true, run what's under the if. Kind of like a Python script. And if it's not true, run what's under the else. Now, here's how you write this. You say $doc, and then you write the key you're looking for. So input string. In my case, I'm saying check if input string is present. So in my case, I'm done. And as you can see, here's the condition. Let me zoom in a bit. Let me close this out now. Input string is present, default, and honestly, at this point, we're done. Oh, actually, we're not. Lastly, actually choose your Lambda functions. Forgot something simple. So here's my letter counter, which is in the same region in Oregon, and here's my advise user Lambda function. And we are done. You say confirm, and now you just say start execution. So here you can play with like really nice examples. So I actually have some in my repo. So I'm going to say, here's my positive example. So let me just go back here. Start execution. Oh, actually, let me do it again. New execution. Let's say demo positive. This is called the demo positive execution. Look at what's going inside here. Hello, this is fourth individual project. Look at the letter counter execute on this, and that's just the output is done. Now we can do the same thing again, and we could just make one mistake here. So that input string is not the same key anymore. So neg example. And check the diagram now. See how it went in? It says, oh, the key as it's supposed to exist is not found. So hey, here's the output message in the body. And then you go, lastly, to wrap this up, you go to your state machine, and which in my case is this one, and you can see all of the events you triggered. So yeah, thank you for watching the video.